Now I have the great honor to introduce you to you, Dr. Ashok Roy, Assistant Vice President of Financial Services and CFO of Kennesaw State University, to conclude today's lecture and charge the KSU Asian Studies Advisory Board. And all of our advisory boards are here, and they are here. They have taken time from very busy schedule, and we have scheduled today over half a year ago. So all of them are here at the reserved seats, and we will give each and every one of them a very beautiful looking plaque. Dr. Roy was educated in India and the US, and he holds 6 university degrees and 5 professional certifications from USA, England, and India. Dr. Roy is the author of 65 publications, and he held senior management positions in academia, government, and private sector in the past. Dr. Roy is widely known as a thought leader, and he is also the affiliate professor of Asian Studies at Kennesaw State University. I would like to invite Dr. Roy to conclude today's conference and charge the KSU Asian Studies Advisory Board. Dr. Roy.
Thank you, May, for your kind words. Against the vast canvas of the robust discussions we have heard this morning, I wanted to pick up and add a few comments. Those of you who are interested in reading scholarly papers on Asia, especially India and China, I invite you to the 3rd edition of the Journal of Emerging Knowledge on Emerging Markets, which will come out on November 1st. There are 30 excellent articles. Having said that, let me just say, ladies and gentlemen, both the speakers have given very good points, but somewhere in between is what I wanted to point out. The statistics are startling. While the West stalls and Japan slumps, China's growth rate is just under 8%. China's industrial production is growing at 15%. Capital investment in dollar terms is now greater in China than in the United States. And last year, the value of IPO offerings on Chinese stock market exceeded that of IPOs in New York by a factor of 3.5. The social consequences are equally staggering. 33% of China's population of 1.3 billion now have wealth between $10,000 and $100,000. There are now over 800,000 millionaires and 65 billionaires in China. China has crammed 100 years of industrialization and urbanization into 30 years, a feat no other country in history has ever done. So what does all this mean? Part of any education should be to challenge conventional wisdom. First, based on 3 key factors, a country's GDP, trade, and the extent to which it is a net creditor to the rest of the world, China's dominance appears almost certain, in spite of the challenges of an aging population, pollution, and other distortions. Second, many economists, and I believe that China's growth rate will slow down from the average 11% over the past decade to an average 7% over the next decade, whereas the US economy will continue to grow at 2.5% as it has over the last 2 decades. The result, ladies and gentlemen, will not be a multipolar world as many pundits predict, but a near unipolar world dominated by China. Third, this also means that the Chinese yuan will be a credible rival to the US dollar as the world's primary reserve currency. I have shared this in a recent article I wrote. Fourth, as trade and investments bind both the United States and Asia, we have a stake in each other's success. For example, we often focus on Chinese exports to the United States. But last year, US companies exported more than $100 billion of goods and services to China, thereby supporting hundreds of thousands of jobs here in the United States. Due to globalization, fundamental structural changes are taking place in the US economy. To address these structural changes in the economy, perhaps we should look at what is called in public policy and strategy as quote-unquote the golden helix or the tangled web, which is a partnership between government, the private sector, and universities. The classic example of which is Singapore. We have to stop playing checkers and start playing chess. Think long term. Fifth, in the past, the dominant powers in the world, such as the United Kingdom and United States, have been very rich compared to their competition. In contrast, China's dominance will be with China only as a middle-income country. Although China now has the second largest economy of about $8 trillion, its per capita income is around $4,000 compared to the $47,000 per capita income in the United States. So China's dominance, too, will be unique in history. Sixth, China's exchange rate policy has affected economies throughout the world, hurting both developed economies such as the United States, as well as developing countries like India, Vietnam, Bangladesh, and Mexico. In 2002, or just 9 years ago, the United States had 6 times more peer-reviewed scientific publications than China. Today, according to the National Science Foundation, the United States has 2.5 times that of China. This is important because there is a direct, strong, empirical correlation between R&D, innovation, and economic growth. Today, China spends $100 billion a year on its military, whereas the United States spends around about $700 billion. Policy analysts like Robert Kaplan believe that China is becoming a naval power, especially in the South China Sea, where the United States currently guarantees the status quo. So while the United States has been distracted by land wars in the greater Middle East, the military power also is shifting from Europe to Asia. There are remarkable similarities in the design and performance of India and China's intergovernmental fiscal problems. Both countries have highly decentralized expenditure assignments, while having highly centralized revenue assignments. This creates, in both India and China, a vertical fiscal gap, leading to substantial intergovernmental transfers. As emerging countries continue to grow, established parameters will need to be changed into variables, especially with regard to issues like global governance, multilateral negotiations, and in international institutions like the World Bank and the IMF. Ladies and gentlemen, the dominant conflicts in geopolitics in this century will be over energy, raw materials, and water. Yes, water. These are the big challenges ahead. The world is getting smaller and more crowded. And in this world, we have to figure out where we fit in. Thank you.